Hello everyone, welcome to On Purpose Astrology. I'm Mandy.Clee and today I'm going to be talking about the solar eclipse in Libra on October the 14th, 2023. Now, a solar eclipse is basically a supercharged, super intense new moon. So we have a new moon, an eclipsed new moon in Libra. Let's have a look at the chart. So we can see here in house 6 the new moon in Libra. So 21 degrees of Libra, exactly, we have together the sun and the moon in house 6 here. I've set the chart as I always do for London because it's where I live. It'll be in different houses depending on where you are based, and it might be in a different house depending on your own chart if you want to put this eclipse in your chart to see where it falls on your chart and what contacts it might make with other planets and with the angles. If you don't know your chart, you can get a free download chart from astro.com. But yes, here we have the new moon in Libra, eclipsed, an eclipsed new moon. It's a south node eclipse. So you can see here in house 6, you've got the sun, you've got the moon, and then you've got 25 degrees of Libra, you've got the south node. An eclipse is an eclipse because it's close to the nodes. That's what makes an eclipse. It's a lunation, either a full moon, which is a lunar eclipse, or a new moon, which is a solar eclipse that falls close to the lunar nodes. The lunar nodes aren't planets, they are points. I won't go into the technical detail of why that is the case because it's complicated, and I think you probably want to know what this solar eclipse means rather than a technical explanation. So the nodes are really important to look at when we are talking about what an eclipse might mean. In this chart for this eclipse, it falls during a really intense T-square from Pluto in Capricorn. You can see Pluto there in Capricorn in the 10th house, to the North Node, which is in the 12th house, in 25 degrees of Aries, and the South Node, as I said, 25 degrees of Libra. Now, as I've already said many times, and I'm sure you know, that the nodes are always in opposition. In signs that are in opposition, they travel as a pair. So they're making a T-square, and they have been really since early summer, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, since early summer, with Pluto. They've been traveling with Pluto in an intense T-square. A T-square aspect is an aspect of manifestation. It's an aspect of things happening. It's an aspect, it's a very dynamic aspect. It's known as a hard aspect, a more difficult aspect, but things, you know, that's always relative, isn't it? What's difficult for one person isn't for another person. But it's a dynamic aspect. It brings things to the surface, brings things to you, whether it's from your inner work or from outside influences through relationships, because relationships are what eclipses are all about and what the nodal axis is all about. So you might see some themes coming through in your relationships that might be challenging. T-squares can be quite challenging. So before we kind of delineate, before we sort of explain or describe some of the themes of that particular T-square and also the new moon in particular, the eclipse new moon in particular, I think it's important to mention my take on what is the ultimate theme of North Node in Aries and South Node in Libra. It's an 18-month cycle, so there's 18 months of the North Node in Aries, the South Node in Libra. It's been for a month or so far, a couple of months or so. We've got a way to go. So the signs that the nodal axis falls in show us the things that we might wish to bring in, to develop, to work upon, which is the North Node, which is in Aries, so it's Aryan stuff. And what we might need to change, let go of, adapt, the South Node, which is kind of Libran stuff, which is a this eclipse. So it puts a real focus on what we might need to get rid of. The North Node in Aries, and I'll probably say this quite a few times during this video, the North Node in Aries is the I am. It's our own sovereignty, how we stand as our own sovereign, independent spirit, going our own way through life. Whereas the South Node in Libra is all about the we are. So how do we do that in relationship to others? Whether that's romantic relationships, family, social friendship relationships, work and colleague relationships. I am and we are. And where do we find the balance? This Libra eclipse, new moon, talks about finding that balance, focuses on Libra, all about where do we find the balance between me and you, I and we. If we want to grow, we want to spend this period of the time that's left, well over a year that's left with the North Node in Aries. One of the things you can do is to think about how you use the phrase I am, how you describe yourself to others and to yourself. I am what? What am I? I'm powerful. I'm powerless. I'm intelligent. I am stupid. I'm capable. I can't. I can't do it. I am not capable. So how do you define yourself, in a positive way or in a negative way? That's something to think about. Really notice when you say is it a negative statement or is it a positive statement? If you can make them authentically positive statements about yourself, then you are moving into, just automatically moving into that North Node in Aries energy. Do you define yourself in relation to someone else? Oh, I am his partner. I am her partner. Or do you go, I am this? Again, we have to find that balance between I am and we are, but a healthy balance. Pluto's here to remind us what a healthy balance might look like by showing us sometimes what a healthy balance isn't, and we'll talk about that. But Aries, so what are the strong, positive qualities of Aries that we might want to acknowledge, we might want to try and move into if that is our process? Well, it's independence. Okay, I am is a message of independence. I am. Okay. It's direct, focused on the self. At best, Aries is selfish, i.e., looking after itself first, but in the most healthy way, not to the detrimentals or the harm of others. It's fearless. It goes in the direction it wants to go or it needs to go. It doesn't think too much, it just acts. Now, a mature and wise Aries will probably know what risks are and will, understand that life isn't without risks, but will use its wisdom to kind of feel the fear and do it anyway, to understand, to feel the difference between what's fear as an emotion that's false emotions appearing real. I don't know whether you've heard that acronym before. False emotions appearing real. So what is a real fear? What isn't a real fear? Are we going to go running towards the saber-toothed tiger, to sort of think about where fear came from, why we have this dynamic of being frightened because it kept us safe and it helped us to survive. And Aries ultimately wants to survive. So if it knows what the risks are, it can go and do things safely. So maybe that is a message for the North Node in Aries that you might be able to relate to. There's also a sense of adventure and enthusiasm with Aries at best as well. So where do you find your adventure and your enthusiasm in life? Things to think about. As I said, the South Node is where we might need to release things. So in Libra, what might that be? Well, it might be people pleasing. It might be giving your power away to others. It might be being too agreeable, too easily to yield to other people's power and other people's needs while neglecting your own power and your own needs. And because of, as I said, this square to the nodes from Pluto in Capricorn, and now obviously this new moon, this intense new moon eclipse in Libra brings these things to the fore. Think about where you give yourself away. Where do you hand over your power to others? In relationships, in all relationships, generally, consider, do you meet others as equals? Or do you let other people be the superior to hold the power to pull the strings, or vice versa? Or is it you that takes control, too much control, and has too much power over others? Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008, and it's reminded us through many things we've seen in the news and the way the world has played out that power ultimately, too much power ultimately, without responsibility, power without responsibility corrupts. And we've seen in the news, in governments, in businesses and individuals, that there's been a lack of accountability. Pluto has shown us that. What lessons have we learned from that in our personal, private and professional lives? So do you get involved in power plays on either end of the scale? You know, are you the one who people are trying to power play you to have power over you, or vice versa? But Pluto is ultimately transformative energy. It invites us to empower ourselves, and in so doing, empower others. Maybe this is one of the key messages of not only this ongoing T-square with the nodes, but of this solar eclipse here. Do the power dynamics in our relationships, in our lives, in our world, do they support us? And do they also support others? Or do the power relationships, do they create opposition, division, and a win-lose dynamic? Are they competitive unnecessarily, or are they collaborative? You know, one of the negative things of Aries is unnecessary competition, the aggression of competition, when really a collaborative thing might be, a collaborative way forward might be more productive. Collaboration, of course, is very Libran. So it's about finding the balance. The balance, that's what's really important here, the balance of being in our own power and our own sovereignty, but also empowering ourselves and empowering others. Pluto here also invites us, reminds us to set clear boundaries. Libra also easily says yes, as I said, people pleasing, wanting to compromise, wanting to keep the peace no matter what. Aries and Pluto are less interested in the peace. They're more interested in having that empowerment at best and doing the thing that you need to do to stay in your own sovereignty and to be yourself, to be the I am, to stand up and say, I am this and we are this, and that's okay. And there's a balance there. And we're both empowered. Both parties are empowered by that relationship. No one has their power taken away. And one of the ways you can do that is to set clear boundaries. When other people make impositions on you, again, I've heard many Librans, oh, I do everything for everybody else kind of thing. Well, you say no, and that's not easy. Of course, it's not easy. I'm still learning that. I mean, I'm not Libran, but I'm still learning that, very much so. A balance of power is needed right now in the world. And we can all work towards achieving this. We can all work, just set the intention, and you're already halfway there. So stepping into your power in a compassionate way that creates positivity, positivity in the I am and positivity in the we are. Positivity creates more positivity. Think about where we are willing to compromise while still holding on to our own values and in our own sovereignty and not giving ourselves away. Healthy boundaries, as I've already mentioned. So there are quite a few points of intensity in this solar eclipse in Libra. You might have noticed it highlights the Libran themes that I've already weaved into this discussion so far. It's part, this eclipse, of a very long-running cycle and series of eclipses, a Saros cycle, it's called. And each Saros cycle, they've been going for hundreds and hundreds of years, many centuries, and they all have particular themes. And the theme for this particular Saros cycle that this eclipse belongs to is a theme of power. So you can see power written in this chart for the eclipse over and over again. Power is a theme for this eclipse cycle. It's a theme for this particular eclipse, and I think I'm going to call it empowerment because that takes us into positivity, transformation from power that might corrupt to powerlessness to empowerment of yourself and of others. So that intensity, because of Pluto, because it's the Saros cycle that it belongs to, and also just because it's an eclipse in itself. A new moon, a regular new moon will be a 1 month, just short of 1 month lunar cycle. Whereas the process of an eclipse takes longer. It can take weeks, it can take months. Don't forget it's a new moon, essentially, and the themes of the new moon still apply. So it's the dark of the moon, particularly in eclipse, it's a very dark of the moon, and we can't see really what's going to happen. There are things that are covered, things that are hidden. Again, this is very Plutonian, things that are hidden that will come to light eventually. The darkness is temporary, and we can then move forward when we can see things in a new light. I think that's part of the transformational power of an eclipse, and also obviously the transformational process of Pluto. It digs things up that we might not want to see. They're being hidden in the dark. As I said, it's a process. You might find that something happens on the eclipse itself, but generally speaking, things will unfold over time, over the coming weeks and months. So another point of intensity for this eclipse is, as I said, this T-square from Pluto to the lunar nodes has been going on for a few months already. But 4 days, on the 10th of October, 4 days before this eclipse, Pluto stationed direct. If you've been watching my videos, you'll know that all the outer planets have been going retrograde for quite a while now. And you can see in houses 11, 12 and 1 in this chart, all those planets there, the outer planets there, are all still going retrograde, which means basically they look as if from our point of view on Earth that they're going backwards. Pluto goes forward by the time of this eclipse. So we're going through a period, we've been going through a period, no doubt, where a lot of inner work has been going on in our lives. Things going backwards, where we're kind of reassessing, we're kind of resting, you know, maybe not so much energy as we would have liked to have had. Things are starting to move forward now that Pluto is going direct. We can start to come into our power. As I said, the process of an eclipse is longer than a regular lunation, and Pluto will speed up a little bit as well. So it's very much the start, the seeding point of a process. So at least until the end of November, we have got this T-square between Pluto and the nodes in place as well. So that could be a good kind of timetable for the process of this eclipse itself, although it might go on a little bit longer. Focus is on relationships, of course, because it is a new moon in Libra. Relationships. As I've already said, the relationship to yourself is just as important as your relationship to others, and finding that balance between that without compromising and giving yourself too much, but while still collaborating and compromising. You know, that definition, as I said, I keep saying it, but it's so important. I am this, I am that. Saying it strongly and assertively, meaning it, having your I am reflecting your values. I am honest. I am kind. I am grateful. I am willing to be accountable for my actions. You know, some of these things, Libra is all about values. You know, and Aries as well is also about values too. How do we define ourselves by our values? Maybe it's time to think about what your core values might be and whether they do fit with your career, with your profession, with your relationships, with your family. Pluto will show us these things. Pluto will show us the dirt that we might have hid under the carpet that we didn't want to see. Pluto will bring that up, particularly if you are very affected by this eclipse. I can tell you that really you will have more intensity from this eclipse if you have anything between 18 and 29 degrees of the cardinal aspect, the cardinal signs, sorry. So between 18 degrees of the cardinal signs and 29 degrees of the cardinal signs. The cardinal signs, of course, are Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn. So again, you can look at your chart and you can see if you have anything, whether you have planets or angles, the midheaven, the ascendant, the descendant, and the IC. So it's a process, as I said. The issues and the themes of this eclipse, as well as this T-square Pluto to the nose that I keep talking about, it's a process. So issues of power plays and empowerment might come up over the coming months, as I've already talking about. And Saturn goes direct, as I said. The outer planets have all been going retrograde, backwards, and now they all do start in turn to go direct again. So Saturn will go direct on the 4th of November, so less than a month after this eclipse. Saturn is a crystallization planet. It's a point of potential manifestation. So you might start to see what this eclipse means to you personally around about early November. Then on the 6th of December, Neptune goes direct in Pisces. So that's a time of perhaps some inspiration that might come to you. It might be a time to start listening to your dreams or your thoughts or your imagination. It can also be a time of confusion. You might not know or fully understand what's happening. You might not have all the information, or you might have thought you had all the information, but something else comes to light and you might feel a little bit confused and you might need to take a little bit of time to think about it. Then on the 27th of December, Chiron goes into direct as well. So you can see in house 12, it's green. It's 17 degrees and 31 minutes of Aries at the moment in the eclipse chart, Chiron. It's the symbol that looks a bit like a key. It's slightly obscured by the circle that I've drawn. So how are we able to stand in our sovereignty despite our wounds, despite the things that have been holding us back, despite the traumas that we might have been through? That's Chiron work, the work of Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. So this applies not just to obviously December. This might be a touch point, 27th of December when Chiron goes direct, or after Chiron goes direct, you know, in the weeks that follow. But that's a touch point. But it's also important for this eclipse itself because you can see Chiron is opposite 4 degrees of orb, just over 4 degrees of orb. It's opposite this Libra new moon, this Libra eclipse. So what can we offer to others? What have we learned through dealing with our own wounds, traumas, the things that we've needed to heal in ourselves? How can we demonstrate our sovereignty? How can we be authentic in our imperfectly perfect selves to again be the way shower for others? Remember, Aries is at best about being the way shower. How can we show the progress that we've made? How can we help others make the same progress? Now, Chiron in the myth, the wounded healer, he was able to heal others but couldn't heal his own wound. Now, I believe that the paradigm is shifting a little on this. I believe that we will, or we can even, heal all wounds, all traumas, things that have come from past lives, things that have come from our childhood, for example. I'm very hopeful about that. And maybe we will start to see some of that coming through with this Chiron before Chiron is finished in Aries, and certainly when it starts to go direct again in Aries. I'd also like to mention another planet, a dwarf planet that is in part of this mix for this eclipse, which is Eris, also in the 12th house. She's sitting between Chiron and the South Node at 24 degrees of Aries, 44. Now, Eris is the warrior female energy. So while Venus, which rules Libra, Venus is peaceful and friendly and affable and sociable. Eris is the opposite. She's uncompromisingly herself. She is the goddess of discord and strife. Now, I've done a whole video about Eris. It's about 24 minutes long. It's really good, actually. It's well worth watching. Eris is fascinating. I'm fascinated by Eris. I think she's incredible. She was not invited to a party, not invited to a wedding on Mount Olympus in the myth. Can you think of anything worse for a Libran? We're thinking back to this solar eclipse now in Libra. Can you get anything worse for a Libra to not be invited to the party, to not be popular, to not be liked, to not be sociable? Well, this is what happened to Eris. Did she go and cry? Did she go and hide? No, she turned up anyway, and she threw a golden apple into the proceedings, which, long story short, and you can read the myth, or you can, the myth, I describe the myth in some detail in the video about Eris. She created a wall, basically. She is the warrior, female warrior spirit. What can we learn from her? Well, she underlines the North Node in Aries pattern of needing to stand in your own power. But again, paradigm shift. I talked about the paradigm shift just now with Chiron. He's associated in charts with, and you can see, I talk a little bit more about this in the video, and also reference a very good article on astro.com that you can read that talks a little bit more in detail about this. She's associated in the charts of people who shift the paradigms of the way we view our world. So again, the hope, the promise, the paradigm shift. So when we talk about embodying the best and reflecting the best of Aries, well, the best of Eris too, not violence, but standing up for ourselves, standing in our power and not being left out. She's also associated very strongly in the charts of game-changing feminists throughout history. So again, where is life not fair for women or for any particular group in society? Maybe she says something about the trans agenda. Maybe she says something about fairness and equality for trans people as well. Don't forget, we're going back into the Libra for this new moon. Libra is about fairness and equality and balance and peace, not discord. But there is a lot of discord in the world at the moment, particularly in gender politics at the moment. So maybe Eris has come along to show us that there's a lot of misogyny going on in the world at the moment. Eris has maybe come along now to show us that. You know, square to Pluto. Pluto digs up the filth and the dirt, you know, so we can see it. We might think that misogyny has gone wild. I mean, there's been so many stories. I could spend another half an hour. I won't spend another half an hour talking about recent stories in the news of male misogyny just in the UK, in public figures, in public life. But Pluto shows us what is there under the surface. It shows us what's been bubbling around quietly, privately, secretly, secretively, and it shows us, it brings that up to show us. And this is where Eris can really help us. A paradigm shift in the way we view our world. fairness, equality. As I say, Eris is really fascinating. Standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. I think that's another way we can use the energy of Aries and the energy of Eris in relationship to the energy of Pluto and the energy of Libra and the South Node in Libra. Not just for this solar eclipse, but generally. So this new paradigm that I would love to see, that I think is unfolding in the world, that I hope for, is that warrior spirit, but without violence, but with compassion, with heart, with empathy. Now, Mars is the brother in the myth. Mars is the brother of Eris. That's that more male warrior energy. And you'll see in this chart in in house 6. Heart, I said heart then, didn't I? Heart 6. Well, we should all be in our heart. I think that is how we ground ourselves. That is how we center ourselves, is to be in our hearts. The sun, of course, represents the heart, to have compassion for others. Generally, not just in this chart, but generally, I think that is the way the world is going or should be going. And we can make that difference. But Mars is in Scorpio. Just gone into Scorpio in this chart on the 14th of October. 1 degree and a bit of Scorpio. You can see in house 6 there. And it's going to be in Scorpio until 4th of November 2024. So it's got over a year in Scorpio. So what does Mars in Scorpio stand for? Well, we know that Pluto is all about control, but perhaps not the healthiest control. It shows us control that's not necessarily healthy. Mars in Scorpio at best can be about that control, that very healthy control of our passions and emotions, so that we can filter them, so that we can express them in a healthy way. It doesn't act fast. Mars in Scorpio, it acts more slowly because it thinks things through, it forms strategies, it gets into the detail, it probes, it researches, and leaves no stone unturned in the search for the truth and the search for the way forward. It reminds us, Mars is Scorpio, not to get involved in psychological power struggles. We've already talked about that with regard to Pluto here. At worst, that can be a manifestation. Another reminder with Mars in Scorpio. But really, Mars in Scorpio asks us not to betray ourselves or others, to stand in our own sovereignty, to be ourselves, and to act ethically and act in a way that is strong and powerful, but also compassionate and heartfelt. Not to betray ourselves and not to betray others. Again, to stand in our power, but also to stand in our own values. I talked earlier about thinking about what our values are, and do we live our values? Are we allowed to live our values? You know, in the workplace, are we working in a place where we agree with the values, or are we giving away our own values to do the job that we do just to earn a living? Not easy things to solve, but definitely things to contemplate. Mars in Scorpio, when it does decide what it wants, it's got strong desires, it's passionate. You use that passion to really go for what you want, to go all in. Go all in to make yourself and your relationships and your world a better place. I hope that's been really interesting. One further point is that think back to 19 years ago, if you're old enough, you will have had an eclipse at the same degrees 19 years ago, which is 21 degrees of Libra, the cardinals. Think back, because there might be some themes then that relate to the themes now, or you might even look back and think, oh, look how far I have come. It's my hope for you that you will have a wonderful time during this eclipse, and that it will be useful, that it will be powerful, but in a good way, that you'll be able to stand in your I am, but also you'll be able to appreciate the we are. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you. I love you all. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please comment, please like. And if you want to see my website, about more of the work that I do on purposeastrology.com. Thank you so much. Bye for now.